on the political napalm? Well, as we predicted in the video where we discussed the fact that Tucker Carlson was getting all of the J6 footage from one of the most feckless and spineless and cowardly speakers in American history, and Kevin McCarthy, the spin and smear campaign has already started. So we're going to take a look at one of the particular things that little Tucky Wuckums has decided to release over on Fox News. And this is footage meant to dissuade you of what you did see and did learn and did know about January 6th, dating back almost 1.5 years now at this point. So, one of the things that got brought up in the Tucker cast was that Josh Hawley was not quite the coward that the January 6th footage made him out to be, where he was seen running away from what potentially could have been the mob coming down the hallway. They claim it was edited footage, and they're like, oh, hey, look, here's all these lawmakers running ahead of Josh, and now Josh brings up the rear. There was nothing heroic in what Josh did. He wasn't bringing up the rear for protection. He wasn't looking over his shoulder, backing up to make sure nobody was coming. He was as scared as anybody on that day. And to sit there and say that the footage was selectively edited, no, it wasn't, because during the J6 committee, when that footage ran, right after the Hawley cutting across this intersection, maybe not this intersection specifically, but cutting across an intersection like this, he was also seen catching up to lawmakers going down the stairs by the escalators. So it changes nothing about what Hawley did that day. What you're hearing from Fox News is attempted spin to make him sound heroic. He still did the actions the way that the January 6th committee footage said that he did. The only thing was they started it when they started the footage because he was the last one. They could have shown the other people and he still would have been bringing up the rear, and it still would have been a very true fact that he was running from the very people he helped rile up with his fist in the air in solidarity. So that changes nothing. But one of the big ones, and you can tell it's going to be a big one if Ian Miles Chong gets involved on it, is that supposedly QAnon Shaman was led around the building by police and was essentially, set up to be a fall guy for this. Now, as we're going to see in this footage over here, here he is at the door, seems to be walking peacefully down this hallway. He has cops around him. He goes by what seems like a private isolation booth. He's walking with cops behind him. They're following where he's going. He tries to get into this. Well, a cop tries to get into this blurred out door. It's locked. They turn away. Here he is being escorted to more cops. Still being escorted by cops. You don't know that the cops are leading him anywhere. They open this door, which is to the Senate, and then he gives his prayer. There's a cop in here who... So that's him with the bullhorn. And what is missing from this footage right here in Ian Miles Chong, because it's Ian Miles Chong, so of course he's going to do this, that footage actually continues to where the cop walks up to somebody sitting up against the podium and says, how are you? Are you okay? Do you need help? And he's like, oh, well, I'm good. I got shot in the face by a rubber bullet. And then the cop says, can you guys please leave? This is a sacred place. This is where everything goes down. So, of course, Ian Miles Chong cuts that out. And that is problematic because it's even more snipped than what actually happened. And this is so very typical of Ian over here. This guy is nearly pure scum of the earth. But the actual footage that we've seen, let's see, not that one. Okay. The actual footage that we've seen on this is it goes a little bit further, and the cop is sitting there asking, okay, does anybody need help? And then he tries to peacefully get Qanon Shaman out of there. Now, I want to remind everybody that on January 6th and on January 7th, the narrative was that Qanon Shaman and the other two from the infamous picture of what I like to call the Big Three, where Qanon Shaman, the guy with the Dishonored tattoo on his hand that everybody thought was a communist sickle and hammer, and then the third guy, which I believe was the guy who got fired because he was wearing his work badge to the insurrection. Let me see if I can find that picture. Qanon Shaman. Let me see if I can find that one where it is the three of them together. Okay, so here's a semi-good representation of... Okay, here it is. So, yellow shirt guy was the Dishonored tattoo, and black shirt guy was the guy who wore his work badge to the insurrection and got fired for it because his company recognized it and they were like, oh, dude, you're a jackass. And they fired him for it. So these three over here, the day of January 6th, and I believe even 24 hours later, the right was saying, well, this is Antifa. It's clearly Antifa because what Trumper dresses like this, and this guy has a communist hammer and sickle tattoo. What right-winger is a communist? Well, it was proven that it was the Dishonored game tattoo. It was proven that this guy is Qanon Shaman, and he's been doing this for a long time, and this guy got fired. I want to point out another piece of spin that happened on this day. There was a guy who was wearing a shirt that said Antifa, but what was cropped out was that it says Antifa sucks. And the guy was well known to be a huge racist by the Southern Poverty Law Center. So the right has already tried spin several times on this before, and it failed. And now they're doing it again, saying that he was peacefully led around and it was all a setup and everything. But what everybody's forgetting is that Jacob Chansley, Qanon Shaman, is in jail because he admitted to it. Not only did he admit to it, he took his lumps at the time. Here is a copy-paste from an NPR article a while back when he was actually sentenced. He says, I have no excuse, no excuses whatsoever. My behavior is indefensible. He admits right over here, he has acknowledged using a bullhorn to rile up the mob, which we've seen in the footage. He has it with him when he's on the Senate floor, offering thanks in a prayer while in the Senate for having the chance to get rid of traitors and scratching out a threatening note to Mike Pence. This part here, offering thanks in a prayer while in the Senate, is key. That is what is missing from Ian Miles Chong's little nugget over there. The part where he is on video, part of that longer Fox broadcast, saying that prayer in that video. So this has already made it to court. And I want to tell you something. If his lawyers listened to him and he told them, dudes, I was led around the Capitol by police. They brought me everywhere. They let me into things. I totally didn't do anything wrong. Those lawyers should have said, okay, let's find this footage. Let's go to the Capitol security. Let's find this footage and let's prove you innocent. So either the lawyers are inept or this narrative doesn't actually hold water because it was looked at and it doesn't prove his innocence or that he was railroaded in any way, shape, or form, and a court has already looked at it. But regardless of it, he has pled guilty. And that statement shows that he took responsibility for what he did. Another thing to point out, Marjorie Eddy Three Toes made a big stink of visiting back in November of 21 the quote-unquote political prisoners in the DC jail. While it was truthfully revealed that the conditions in that jail are terrible, and that it's coming more to light now that political prisoners in there that are largely white, the conditions were abhorrent, yes. However, I'm sure she would have met with Jacob Chansley, one of the biggest, most well-known players and faces of the insurrection that could possibly be. You would have thought he would have said at that time, lady, you gotta get me out of here. I didn't do the things that they think that I'm doing. And she would have brought it to light at that point. She would have been hollering from the rooftops that Jacob Chansley was railroaded. Well, she's doing that now because Fox has put the spin out there. Why didn't she ever do it in the past when she visited the prisoners? Unless, of course, she didn't run into him. But you would think, being sort of the face of it all, the Abercrombie and Fitch model of the whole thing, why didn't she see one of the most notorious people about it? So what we're looking at here is extremely important. This is the known Parler dump from the Parler hack a little after January 6th. Some enterprising hackers breached Parler's security because it had a huge weakness in it and looked at the January 6th footage from the phone of the people who actually committed it. This reinforces the original stories that we saw on TV and what the January 6th committee brought up. You're going to see this heavyset guy over here get told to bring his mask up. Take a listen. Well, and that's okay. So that's the one that says, that's the cursing one. I think it is this one. So I've taken some. Oh yeah, this one's pretty bad. This is one where the cops are trying to close emergency doors and the rioters try to keep them open. Hear that? Wait, there's more on this one. So what you hear now is what you hear in that one is the crowd yelling "scared now" to the cops, and you have people saying to keep the doors open. Boy, that surely looks peaceful. Here's another one from the Parler dump. I believe in my notes this is the one with, this might be the one with keep your mask on. Yes.
It's amazing. Put your mask on. I don't want to see you.
If you're just a peaceful tourist and you're right wing who didn't really care about COVID and COVID transmission at the time and believed it largely to be fake and a non-killer, then why is somebody telling you to put your mask on? You're being told to put your mask on because you're doing something you need to hide.
We are in the halls of Congress. We don't want war.
We don't want war.
We're prepared to fight for our liberty.
We're prepared to fight. Again, Sounds peaceful. Another piece of footage. I think it is this one. Listen. Where's the traitors? Drag them out by their effing hair. So what I've done for this one, I've only done inside the Capitol, and I've clicked through a bunch of these, and we have things like somebody picking up the phone and yelling for Pelosi and saying, "We are coming, bitch. You're a fucking traitor." 239. This one is going to be a visual one. Oh, this might be a little bit different. Yeah, there's two at 239. This one gets tough to pick.
They're gassing us inside.
There was one of these over here where it looks like, and this one you will have to decide okay, this one, yeah. This one is hard to tell if cops are pushing people into the building or if cops are trying to keep people out. You see some cops here, but we don't know how this is all getting funneled in. Is them pushing in? Or is this the spin that they've been trying to say, that cops were pushing them into the building? In this little clip, this is an example of one that we can't tell. We need further investigation on. There's this one at 242. They're trying to kick down doors. One of these lead guys, you see him doing it right there. And they were screaming in that video that they were looking for Antifa. Skipping ahead a little bit to this one at 407. There is a yell to push all at once. There it is, all at once at the second over there. All at once to go against the police line. This one at 412.
Let's go! We want those fucking traitors!
And then there's another one in this one where they yell to push. Over here at 457, the last one. There was planning in this one because somebody says, "I want to go." He says, "No, don't go. We're not ready yet." And he says, "Well, I'm not scared. I'm going to go anyway." So, are you going to see this on Fox? Are you going to see the violence that you see in some of these clips over here? The pushing against police lines, the destruction, the kicking down of doors. You're probably not going to see that. But this, what is on the phones of the people who attempted to live stream the insurrection as they were doing it, proves that the original stories, the original narratives, the original realities that we saw about January 6th on TV when it was happening, and what was on the news the days after, what was happening in the J6 committee, they all largely line up. And this is where it is a huge problem that only Tucker has been given this 44,000 hours of footage, and the cherry picking has already begun. We see it with the Josh Hawley situation. We're seeing it with the QAnon Shaman situation. And now, some people are saying that Brian Sicknick seems to be walking around fine, supposedly after he died. Haven't dove into that one yet. Don't really know how that one's going to work out. But their families already released a statement saying this is truly disgusting that every time they are starting to get back to normal and push the hurt of his death away just a little bit further, things like this happen and the situation is gaslit all over again. So, to the people who do think that what is coming out from Tucker is going to change things, is going to set people free, like Qanon Shaman, is going to reverse all of these judgments, all of the people who pled guilty, wait and see. Let's see their defendant lawyers coming out and saying, well, I didn't have access to this. I didn't know about this. I could have gotten my client off had this footage existed. Let's see how many of these actually get turned over and how many of them are suddenly found innocent because there is this exculpatory evidence that proves the January 6th committee was lying all along, that the narrative was incorrect all along, and that it was a giant setup, and Ray Epps was a Fed who instigated it and then bowed out and is now a ghost in the wind. All these crazy things that were said about J6th. We've already lived through the crazy. We lived through it when they tried to paint these people as not patriots and not Trumpers, and they were Antifa, and then the cognitive dissonance that started when Trump started to say, well, if I ever become president again, I'm going to pardon all the January 6th insurrectionists. And you had people who still believed in the Antifa narrative going, wait a minute, why? Why would you pardon Antifa? I don't get it. These were Antifa and BLM people in Trumper gear masquerading. Why would you free them? That goes to show you that the right-wing narratives are all messed up, and sometimes they directly conflict with each other, and they don't know their heads from a hole in the ground with it. Like, what is it? Are they amazing patriots and they're being kept in the gulags of the DC jail and deserve incredible amounts of justice that they're not getting? Or they're Antifa, FBI, CIA, BLM, alphabet soup narratives. That's the narrative, that it's all of them and not actually real patriots and Trump supporters. I haven't even looked at the near the Capitol footage because I wanted to focus on something tight, and inside the Capitol was really good. But by all means, search for projects.propublica.org, Parler Capitol videos. I'll put a link up in the description, and you guys can go around this timeline and see the footage. Oh, look at this. Here at 3:49. We've seen this footage before. This has been in everything. The half moon, half shell window, the cracks in it, people pushed up against it. I believe this might actually be in the area where Roseanne Boyland had passed away, which is something I've covered in another video. I mean, look, this is from the phone of somebody who was there. It confirms everything we've seen in the media. I'm sure if I had the volume on for I mean, look at this. When have we not seen this footage in the media prior to the leaks? People barely hanging on. I mean, that guy looks like he's going to fall at any minute now. I certainly recognize this piece over here because it always made me think of like wood designed to shore up the arch while it was under construction. I've seen that arch in so much footage before. And again, this is unedited footage from people who are recording it from their phones and live streaming it to Parler. And then it was hacked. So you guys decide. What's the real truth in this? Is it what the J6 committee has said? The mainstream media has showed us the day that it was happening. All of the footage that we've seen from January 6th up till today? Or is it what Fox is going to show you from their large vault of videos that they now have access to? Or is it somewhere in between? Right now, only time will tell. But we've seen what the right has tried to make of the January 6th narratives when it was happening, and how they tried so many things with this. It was Antifa, it was BLM, it was FBI plants, it was peaceful. They were let in. Look at them going through the velvet ropes. I mean, somebody is using it, has got a chair over here. You see stuff being thrown out of this archway. There's somebody with a pole trying to throw it in. Nothing changes that. This is raw footage. This may as well be in the brain of somebody who was there. We may as well be in some sci-fi movie where we're tapping into the person's memory. This is good as gold as to what was truly happening that day. So we'll see. We'll see if any convictions get overturned. We'll see if there's any real, true, and legal uproar that manages to change any of what happened on this day. It's the Political Napalm, signing off.